Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. No. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Hello, America. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the fruited plain. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on this program, would love to have you, as long as you're timely and relevant. I wish to talk about a subject you're probably not going to get a lot of other people talking about, but it's, I think, a really big story. JetBlue has decided to cut unprofitable routes in its flight network, scaling back flights out of Los Angeles and Fort Lauderdale. So according to Bloomberg News, JetBlue is going to eliminate unprofitable routes in California and Florida and drop service to several cities in South America, a sweeping overhaul of its network as it looks to cut costs. Flights between Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and cities including Atlanta, New Orleans, and Salt Lake City will be eliminated. The carrier will cut a third of its flights out of Los Angeles in June, including routes to Las Vegas, Miami, and San Francisco. I've never flown on JetBlue. I have friends who fly JetBlue everywhere they possibly can. It's got a cult following, much like Southwest has a cult following. I nearly flew JetBlue once. I have my JetBlue miles card, but I've never actually put miles on it. So I was in Washington, D.C. This has now been several years ago. There was a terrible storm, and all the flights were canceled, except there was a JetBlue flight. And that JetBlue flight would take me to Boston, away from all the storms. And then I would sit at the Boston airport for like 3 or 4 hours and get on a flight at like 5 a.m. and get into Atlanta sometime around 7 a.m. And they expected it to be delayed because of the weather moving in. And so I'd get into Atlanta around 8 a.m. Well, the flights to Boston started getting canceled, and there was a seat on a train, on an Amtrak train. And so I left the Reagan Airport, rushed to Union Station in D.C., and got on an Amtrak at like 8 p.m. and got into Atlanta at 8 a.m. And in a point of absurd and hilarious irony, as I was driving home exhausted because I slept very little, but did meet some great listeners on that train trip. We hung out all night. As I was driving past the airport, I'm not making this up, as I was driving past the Atlanta airport, a JetBlue plane crosses in front of me. And a few minutes later, I get a notification that my flight from Boston had landed. Would have gotten in at the exact same time as the Amtrak, but would have experienced JetBlue. That's the only JetBlue experience I've had. I haven't actually been on it. JetBlue apparently is really good in its first class cabin between New York and Boston and Los Angeles, San Francisco. So coastal flights, cross-country flights, they have lay-flat beds that are apparently fantastic, and they've got great amenities. People I know who fly JetBlue love JetBlue. They love the innovation of it. They love all that stuff. I fly Delta because Delta gets me wherever I want to go out of Atlanta until such day as I'm a millionaire and can fly priority jet or net jets. That would be private. But a lot of people love JetBlue. Here's a problem with JetBlue, though. JetBlue is in an industry that does not make a lot of money. George Will, the columnist, one time noted, and it blew my mind. This column was written after 9/11, right after 9/11, when all the planes were grounded and all the airlines were starting to go bankrupt and the government was pouring money in to save the aviation industry. George Will noted that from the moment the Wright brothers took off in Kitty Hawk until September 11th, 2001, the total combined profit of the American airline industry amounted to a nickel. Aviation is not profitable. Aviation is not profitable. In the 1970s, it was a highly regulated industry by the federal government, and it was extremely expensive to fly. God bless him, Ronaldus Maximus got elected in November of 1980, and he began deregulating the airline industry. And a lot of airlines went out of business. They were no longer regulated and subsidized. They no longer had massive ticket prices. When I was a kid flying back and forth overseas, have to leave Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and there were or New Orleans, and go to either Atlanta or Houston or Dallas, and there was Texas Air, and there was Eastern, and there was Delta, and then there were all sorts of airlines. Well, Eastern went out of business. I think Texas Air went out of business. All these other airlines I used to fly as a kid, they went out of business. And the industry, because of deregulation, consolidated. And in that consolidation over time, you were left with Sun and American and United and Continental and Delta and Northwest and a few others. And then Delta bought Northwest, United bought Continental, American bought SkyWest or SunWest, whatever it was, and U.S. Air. And, well, you're now left with not a lot of options to fly domestically. However, you can fly domestically. Now you got Southwest in there as well. You got JetBlue. You've got Spirit. You got Frontier. God bless you if you fly them. For a while, you had AirTrans. Southwest bought it. Consolidation and mergers is a key in the industry for survival because there are limited amounts of gates at airports. They compete, these airlines do, for those gates. And JetBlue tried to merge with Spirit Airlines. Spirit is a discount carrier that struggles to stay in business. JetBlue is a discount airline with amenities that tries to stay in business. And they decided for economies of scale and benefit and growth and gate access, they needed to merge for both of them to stay in business. The Biden administration went to court, used a federal liberal judge to block them, and you know what the result is? JetBlue right here, eliminating routes. People are going to lose their jobs. The airline is going to scale back, and it's going to be harder for JetBlue to stay in business because the Biden administration decided it was better to have multiple airlines that struggle on a daily basis to make ends meet than to allow consolidation in an industry between two discount carriers that might allow both of them to stay in business. You know, for a while, Frontier and Spirit were also looking at each other to merge, and that got nixed as well. The Biden administration is blocking the consolidation of the industry because they think it's good for you, except it's not good for you when the workers lose their jobs and the airlines go belly up because they can't make ends meet. Aviation is not a profitable business. And the airlines themselves do it to themselves by controlling gate access. Like, for example, JetBlue has tried forever to get hubs in Atlanta and struggled to get gate access in Atlanta because Delta tries to block it all. Near me, there's a county, Paulding County outside of Atlanta, has got an airport, and that local county commission has tried to turn it into a commercial aviation hub. Delta has forever blocked it because they didn't want competition in the Atlanta area from other airlines. So yes, Delta has been complicit in that in the Atlanta airport area. Southwest has been complicit in places. You know, for years, Southwest was only allowed to fly at a Love Field in Dallas because the other airlines ganged up on it. They're ruthless. But the reason they're ruthless is because it's a hard business to make money in. It's a hard business to make money in. The Biden administration has made it harder. For weeks now, I've been telling you the problem with the Biden administration is they're selling us the macroeconomic picture. The macroeconomic picture is a wonderful picture for the United States. Our inflation is less than every other country. Our interest rates are better than other countries. Our growth is better than other countries. We are the tallest midget in the room. We're doing better than the EU. We're doing better than Canada. We're doing better than China. We're doing better than the EU bloc nations individually. We're doing great macroeconomically. It's microeconomically at the household scale where we're doing bad. Your grocery prices are still going up. Your groceries are still having problems. Your gas bill is still fluctuating, but gas is still above where it was when Donald Trump was president. Your home energy costs are up. Your rental costs are up. Your insurance costs are up. It's not just your grocery costs. So many of those costs at the household level have increased. And when the Biden administration says those costs have come down, what they actually mean is the rate of increase has slowed. Not very many of those things have actually deflated in cost. Something else that's gone up is the cost to travel in this country. Aviation fuel prices have gone up. Airlines have had to raise rates because they've had to pay more to retain employees who are otherwise dropping out of the workforce, so they've had to pay more in wages to keep people working. They're still shorthanded with baggage claim and things like that. It's gotten expensive. Biden forcing JetBlue and Spirit not to merge, not to allow that level of consolidation because they're convinced it's good for consumers, has actually been bad for consumers. And not just bad for consumers, but bad for the employees of both companies, where they're going to have to cut routes and fire people, lay people off. The Biden administration is run overwhelmingly by people who've never worked in the private sector. They've worked in nonprofits. They've worked in the academic environments. In fact, the Biden administration has fewer people working in it that have worked in the private sector than any other administration, including the Obama administration. The overwhelming majority of Biden employees at the policymaking level have come from nonprofit think tanks and academic institutions. And it shows in stuff like this because in theory, in academic theory, the more airlines you have, the greater the competition, the lower the prices. In theory, everybody knows that's true. The more competition, the lower the prices. In practice, in an aviation industry that has struggled to make more than a nickel's worth of profits since the Wright brothers took off at Kitty Hawk, the more planes there are, the more airlines there are, the lower the prices, the less they can make a profit, the more likely they are to go out of business. You've got to have some level of economies of scale at airlines because fuel prices come down. The more planes you have, the bigger your airline, the cheaper you can get. Delta's invested in actually buying petroleum refineries and cut deals with oil companies to lower its economies of scale. Economies of scale matter in something like the aviation industry, not the number of competitors. And the Biden administration is too stupid to realize this because they haven't had anybody work in the real world. And so the real world consequences of this is JetBlue is now cutting routes. Prices are going to go up. And probably Spirit is going to have a terrible time. So JetBlue financially probably has better financial positioning than an airline like Spirit, but they're both going to be on economic hard times because the Biden administration decided to prioritize the availability, variety of airlines as opposed to consolidation, which doesn't work in the aviation industry. It's a pretty well settled matter that it doesn't work well in the aviation industry. Even free market economists who like competition recognize it doesn't work that well. And it's not just them. You know what the Biden Trade Commission is doing? They're going after Amazon.com because they think it makes it too hard. They make it too hard for you to cancel your Prime account with just a couple clicks. As opposed to you subscribe to a newspaper, they expect you to actually call and sit on the phone on hold for an hour to cancel your newspaper. But God, no, they're not going to go after that. They're going to go after Amazon Prime for giving you what? Any product you want in the world delivered to your doorstep in about 24 hours. Those are the bad guys now. Their priorities are screwed up, and in the process, they haven't fixed the microeconomic picture in this country, and they're working very hard to screw up the macroeconomic picture as well. and their chickens will come home to roost at the ballot box in November if they succeed. Hello, America. Welcome back. Delighted to have you with me. 877-973-7425 should you wish to be on this program. It's going to be relevant to what I'm going to talk about, and y'all don't even know what I'm going to talk about. Okay, this was the top story of the Wall Street Journal this morning. They moved down the page a little bit, but this is kind of infuriating to me. This is the headline at the Wall Street Journal. Trump claims 2024 will be rigged, putting Republican turnout at risk. Stolen election claim draw cheers at campaign rallies, but muddle parties get out the vote effort. In 2021, January of 2021, 427,205, that is the precise number, 427,205 Republicans in the state of Georgia who voted in the 2020 presidential election did not return for the runoff election for Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, costing the Republicans control of the United States Senate because they thought the election was going to be stolen. Donald Trump, party leaders in the state of Georgia, members of Congress were campaigning saying if Brian Kemp didn't call a special session and change the law, which would have been unconstitutional, that the election was going to be stolen. Never mind, the election in 2020 was not stolen in Georgia, even though some of them still think it was. They talked themselves out of winning, and Republicans have been talking themselves out of winning ever since. 427,205 Republicans, 700,000 people who voted in the 2020 general election did not turn back out in the runoff, and 427,205 of them were Republicans. They were surveyed, and 2/3 of those people said they didn't bother voting because it was going to be stolen. So here comes Trump in a very close election where 40,000 votes nationwide could choose the winner. And he's already telling people it's going to be stolen. He wants a landslide. We have to win, so it's too big to rig. Except it's not going to be. It's going to be close, and you don't want to dissuade people from voting, man. Don't do this. This isn't smart. What is smart is going to Vision Computers and letting them handle your IT support for your business. You can go pay $179 a year, not a month, but a year, and Vision can be your IT department for your company. And so your employees can call them if they got an email problem, if they got a printer problem. Vision, by the way, can even remote in many cases and take over and fix the computers. It's fantastic. We got a computer at our house from Vision Computers, and what's so great about it is it's my son's gaming PC, and I don't ever have to be tech support. I am the computer tech support, even for my company. I am the CEO of my company, and I got to be the tech support for my employees on Macs. We use Macs here, but with Vision and the PC, I never have to answer my son's computer question. Vision does it. He's got the number. He calls him 15 seconds or less. He gets the answer if he's got a problem. In fact, he wants to get some flight simulator attachments, and I didn't know the answer. He called Vision. They made sure he had the answer. 404 Compute's the number. 404 Compute. Call them. Tell them I sent you. Get a good deal. Or visioncomputers.com. 404 Compute. Call Vision Computers today. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. 877-973-7425 should you wish to be on the program. Now, I want to actually give you some political prognostication and analysis. Listen, I need you to listen to everything I say. I need you to not get mad at me. Stop sending me hate mail. I'm just giving you it straight. I'm not playing the partisan here. My job here is to tell you what's actually happening, not to tell you what you want to hear. And this is obviously about where we're headed in November, because we have our candidates now. Barring some unforeseen thing, we're going to have Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And we have 6, maybe 7, but really 6 swing states. The swing state with the most electoral college votes, Pennsylvania at 19, then Georgia at 16, Michigan at 15, Arizona at 11, Wisconsin at 10, Nevada at 6. 77 electoral college votes up for grabs. If the election were held today, Donald Trump would have 235 electoral college votes. Joe Biden would have 226 electoral college votes. 77 would be up for grabs in those 6 swing states. And according to the latest polling out there, the latest polling averages, Donald Trump is ahead in almost every single one of the swing states. Now, I'm going to use Real Clear Politics here, just so we have this. The polling averages up. Donald Trump is now ahead in Pennsylvania as well in the polling average. So in Wisconsin, Donald Trump's up 1. In Arizona, Donald Trump's up 5.4. In Georgia, Donald Trump's up 5. In Michigan, Donald Trump's up 3.5. In Pennsylvania, Donald Trump's up 0.6 of a point. In North Carolina, Trump's up 5 points. Some people consider that a swing state. In Nevada, Donald Trump is up 4.3 points. So here's what I'm going to do for the sake of argument. I'm going to give Joe Biden Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Nevada. Why Wisconsin? Because Trump's only up 1 point. Democrats have a strong machine there. Why Pennsylvania going to Joe Biden? Because Pennsylvania leans Democrat, has a Democrat governor and secretary of state now, and the Democrats have a better campaign apparatus and ground game in Pennsylvania. And Donald Trump's only up 0.6 of a point, so let's give Joe Biden Pennsylvania as well as Wisconsin. And I'm going to give the Democrats Nevada because while a Republican was able to get elected governor in Nevada, Nevada is a very tricky state for the GOP because Donald Trump incites Democrats to turn out as much as he does. And in my experience in Nevada, if the Republicans are up 4 or 5 points, that still gives Democrats a narrow edge. They need to be up 6 points or higher. Nevada has 6 electoral college votes. So that leaves Arizona, Georgia, and Michigan. If Donald Trump, well, wait, nope, I'm sorry. I clicked the wrong button here. If Joe Biden wins Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Nevada, there are still 42 unresolved electoral college votes. If Donald Trump wins Georgia, he gets 16 votes. If he wins Arizona, he gets 11. If he wins Michigan, he gets 15. He gets 277 electoral college votes. Michigan becomes a big one, which is why Joe Biden is ditching Israel and bailing on Israel because Joe Biden needs Michigan to win with its 15 electoral college votes. Joe Biden at this point is pretty convinced he's going to lose Georgia. This may come as news to the Democrats in Georgia. But every major Democratic strategist I talk to, and I know many of the prominent ones, they don't actually think Joe Biden's going to win Georgia. They recognize there's a suburban shift. Do you know, by the way, in Georgia, every Republican in Georgia in the state legislature and statewide got more votes than Donald Trump in Georgia in 2020 in the same district? So if you take like District 1 for the state Senate in Georgia, the Republican there got more votes than Donald Trump did in that district and the like. Donald Trump totally underperformed. The problem for the Democrats is a person in Georgia. Her name is Laken Riley. You might have heard of her. The economy, Laken Riley's death, all of these things play in Donald Trump's favor in Georgia. And in fact, the polling in Georgia right now, the good pollsters in Georgia have Donald Trump ahead. That's a real problem for Joe Biden because the good pollsters, not just the fly-by-night pollsters, but even the really good pollsters who pay attention to the state dynamics in Georgia have a good track record in Georgia. Because, national pollsters aren't necessarily good at polling individual states. So look at the people who are good at polling individual states, and what do they see? In Georgia, Donald Trump's ahead. That's 16 electoral college votes. Donald Trump, if the election were held today, probably would win. Now, there is a strain of strongly anti-Trump primary voter, largely from the DeSantis camp, but also the Haley camp. But they say it doesn't matter. The polls are wrong. The polls are lying. Donald Trump's underperforming. And by the way, Donald Trump historically overperforms his polling. This year, he's underperformed virtually every poll. And you need to know that Donald Trump's been underperforming, but at the same time, not by much. So in the Real Clear Politics polling average, Donald Trump is at 46.7% nationwide, up 2. In a 5-way poll, he's up 2.3. In the battlegrounds, Trump's up 3.6. Forget the national polling. It's an electoral college polling ground. And in the battleground states, Donald Trump's ahead in all those battleground states. He could very well become president of the United States. If you're a Democrat and you're not concerned about this, you're not living in reality. But on the other hand, Joe Biden has all the money that Donald Trump does not have. When you have, I have this theory here, money, the person with the most money used to be the person with the most money won. And that would be Joe Biden. But when both candidates have 100% name ID, I don't know that it matters as much, except in this case, ground game. Donald Trump is already telling Republican voters 2024 is going to be stolen if it's close. How many people remember in Georgia in the runoff in 2021 for the Senate, 427,205 Republicans decided not to go vote in the runoff, and more than 2/3 of them said it was because it was going to be stolen. The Republicans would hold the Senate today had Donald Trump and various Georgia Republicans not talked Republicans out of voting in that runoff election. So when Donald Trump goes out now and says, 2024 is going to be stolen too, you might be dissuading people from voting. The other problem for the Republicans is Trump's continued insistence on day of voting. When you look at the Florida primary that happened yesterday, you look at the Ohio primary, which happened yesterday. When you look at the South Carolina primary, you look at the Georgia primary, you look at the Super Tuesday primaries, you look at New Hampshire, what you find is that Donald Trump's voters are still voting on election day, and other candidates' voters are willing to vote early. But this matters in places like the special election in New York and George Santos' seat and others. Republicans chose not to vote early. They chose to vote on election day, and there happened to be a blizzard that day. And so the Republican voting was suppressed because of the weather. The weather was bad. They didn't go vote. And this is a problem for the GOP. This is one of the things Democrats are putting their hopes in, is that the GOP decides to give up yet again the early voting and the absentee balloting mechanisms. And in fact, the GOP is showing signs of trying to convince its voters to go vote on election day. I'm sorry, there are a lot of people who aren't going to stand in a long line on election day, particularly in the rain. The GOP is voting for suicide if they're voting not to participate in early elections. But when Donald Trump tells everyone, it's going to be stolen, people want to go vote on the same day, on election day. It's a dumb thing that he's doing. The GOP used to win absentee and early voting, and now they're losing because of Donald Trump's rhetoric. And yes, Donald Trump's rhetoric is to blame, and you all know it's true. Donald Trump is ahead in the polling. He's ahead in the swing states. If the election were held today, Donald Trump would win, but the election's not today. The election's in November, and he's being outspent by the Democrats pretty significantly, and he's downplaying early voting and absentee voting, and that gives Democrats an edge if the weather is bad on election day. So that's why Donald Trump can win. That's why Joe Biden can win. But if I were a Democrat, I'll tell you what would concern me more than anything else with the data and the polling and the surveys and all the things I'm seeing. Any idea? No. You know, Trump only got 81% of the Republican vote in Florida. That's actually not bad. Nikki Haley did good in well-to-do areas that you'd want to live in, like Naples. But no, that's not the data. The data that I would be concerned with if I were running for president right now is this particular bit of data. Democrats, Donald Trump's favorability for his time in office has gone up. More Americans today view Donald Trump's tenure in office more positively than they did when he left office. That is the biggest warning sign in modern American polling. It is the thing that should keep the Democrats up at night, and it is the biggest red flag that this is Donald Trump's election to lose, and Joe Biden is the underdog. Joe Biden may have more money, but at the end of the day, when you both have 100% name ID and people know it's a presidential election, how much more money does that get you? What does the money get you? Does it get you a ground game? Does it get you absentee balloting? Does it get you all that stuff? Yes, it does. It gets you greater turnout. It gets you a better ground game. It gets you better GOTV, get out the vote operations. It gets you all those things. And that gives Joe Biden an advantage over the GOP. He's got more money to do this with. But when the view of Trump's presidency, the positive view of Trump's presidency has gone up in the last 2 years, and now it's something like a 48, 49% approval rating for Donald Trump's tenure, and you've still got the wrong track metric at like 65% in this country for right now, that tells me that a lot of voters are getting comfortable with the idea of voting for Donald Trump in November who did not like him in 2020. When the view of Donald Trump's tenure in office has gone up in people's minds as actually it wasn't that bad, that tells me that they're viewing it in light of Joe Biden's tenure in office, and voters are viewing Joe Biden's tenure in office so negatively, people who hated Donald Trump are willing to think, you know what, it wasn't so bad. I might be able to vote for him now. That is the biggest polling data out there right now that should be raising alarm bells and whistles for the Democrats, and saying Donald Trump's a threat to democracy and Donald Trump's going to become a dictator doesn't help you, because it's what you said the last time. And guess who's president now? Not the dictator you promised. There are real reasons Republicans should be worried about Donald Trump being the nominee, because he's alienating, he's polarizing, he incentivizes and fires up the Democratic base as equal to, if not more so, than the Republican base. He can't fundraise in the way Joe Biden can fundraise. He doesn't have the money. He's not going to have the money. He's not going to have the ground game. He's already talking about voter suppression by saying the vote's going to be stolen. He doesn't want you to vote early. He wants you to vote on election day. All of those are advantages for Joe Biden. All of those are reasons Joe Biden should win in November. But voters so hate Joe Biden and have begun to view Trump's tenure so much more positively than they thought it was 4 years ago. And Trump is ahead in polling, and if the polling's wrong, okay, the polling's wrong. But even the Democratic good polling that you don't see, the panic mode that they have, the fact that Joe Biden is having to hit the swing states hard right now, shows you their internal data shows the same thing. They think Donald Trump is ahead in the polls right now. And the polling could shift, but no president as unpopular as Joe Biden is right now has ever won re-election. And as Joe Biden's popularity declined, Donald Trump's popularity and the people, what they think about his time in office, goes up. And that is the worst sign possible for Democrats come November. They may have the money and they may have the organization, but it's a presidential election. People are going to turn out. And right now, if they turn out, they're going to vote for Donald Trump unless Joe Biden can figure out a way to really throw Trump off his game and overcome the Republican ground game, which they can probably easily do. But what if Republicans put their foot on the gas and really build? They should. They could. Trump really can win this thing. And Democrats and Trump haters just don't appreciate that fact enough. And that all throws markets into turmoil. You know, we've got this story about the regional banks around the country that put so much into commercial lending, and now they're having trouble making payments. Well, some of them are going to go belly up, it looks like. There's this secret war on cash out there and all of a sudden on our freedoms. And with soaring interest rates squeezing the economy, Swiss America wants to educate you on how to protect your hard-earned assets right now. Go read the report, The Secret War on Cash. Your copy's free. All you do is call or text 800-289-2646. This is an all-out war on cash where the government tries to steer you to using plastic so they can control you. You need to read the report, The Secret War on Cash. It's completely free. All you do is mention Eric Erickson when you call or text 800-289-2646. That's 800-289-2646. You can also go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, SwissAmerica.com/ERICK, or call or text my name to 800-289-2646. Get the Secret War on Cash report from Swiss America completely for free by doing that. 800-289-2646, SwissAmerica.com/Eric. Message data rates may apply. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number, 877-973-7425. I ran long in that last segment. I'm going to get an angry text message from Charlie. So I can't take your phone calls right now because I ran long in that last segment. But I will take your, just be patient when we come back from break. I will take your phone calls. I want to talk about the realtors. Have y'all heard about that big case? The National Association of Realtors, they were told, settle, settle, settle. It's going to be bad if you don't settle. They refused to settle this case. And, well, now it looks like the realtors' lives are going to be upended on their commissions because the National Association of Realtors, they finally decided to settle it. Finally, way later than they should have. People sued over a industry conspiracy to keep commissions artificially high. And, well, things were going badly for the realtors and going to upend the lifestyles of a lot of realtors, I know. Goodness gracious.